Okay, so we're going to do a new Siman today, Simchuf Tzadik Dalet, Din Yore Deah to Mapelet. The halachas relating to a woman who's giving birth, and a Mapelet, one who unfortunately has had a miscarriage of sorts. I say of sorts because it can happen in various stages, and sometimes you can't even detect what's there, what exactly is coming out. And it's important for us to know at what stage there was a miscarriage, because it could make a difference within a ben. The following child will be a bechor or not. So even though some of these halachas you will see are not so relevant, some of the concepts are important. Okay, with your it depends on the mother. Petek or rechem. The Torah says the rechem, the first one to come out of the womb, whereas with the bechor lenachalo is the first. That's for depends on the father's firstborn for inheritance. All right, in Yore Deah, there is two types of dinim, at least midaraisa. There is a stage where she is tameya because of the birth itself, and there's a stage that follows the birth that she may have blood, but that blood is clean blood. So two stages in the process, as you can call it, of childbirth. The initial stage is the Niddah, the birth, and the second stage we'll call it the dam tohar stage. The Torah makes it very clear that there's a difference between the tumah of a boy and a girl. If a woman gives birth to a zachar, she's unclean for 7 days. If it's nekeva, she's unclean for 14 days. However, 33 days later for a boy and 66 later for a girl is the end of the second stage. And that second stage in the past was more significant for kochim. What she can do, what she cannot do as far as kochim are concerned. Today, it's not so relevant because, as we've said many times, Jewish women today are makpid on just about any kind of blood, regardless of when it is seen, even if it's a drop, if it's a stain sometimes. So many of the halachas that would apply during that second stage are not going to be so relevant. Nonetheless, we need to go through the concepts again. But just a quick aside, one of the proofs that we need Torah Shebal Peh in conjunction with Torah Shebifta. We need the oral word together with the written word, meaning that without the oral word you would not always understand the written. Is in this parsha of Kitazreya. The Torah says, by a nekeva, by a female, that she will be unclean by giving birth to a girl. For how long? So it says the letters, the Torah doesn't have vowels, right? It says the letters Shin, Bet, Ayin, Yud, Mem. And how do you pronounce that? So if you don't have the vowels, you may make the mistake of pronouncing it Shiv'im, 70. He's unclean for 70 days, which is not true. Comes along the Torah Shebal Peh and introduces vowels. We have to have a masoret. We have to have a tradition, a clear tradition as to not only the interpretation of the words, of the mitzvahs, but also how to read the word. It can sometimes make a difference, just with the vowels. Instead of Shiv'im, 70, the vowels read Shvu'aim. Now that's a big difference. Remember in Basar b'cholav? It says, Lo tevasher gdi v'chalev imo. So it says not to cook, right? The kid, or the meat of the kid, in the mother's milk. But if without the vowels, you could say, maybe it says b'chalev imoy. Chalev, we know, is forbidden fats. Right. So you have a word that without the vowels could mean either fats or milk. So without the Torah Shebal Peh, we wouldn't know. Without Torah Shebal Peh, you wouldn't know how to make tefillin. It says, put on this totafot. What are they supposed? How do we know it's black, square, with straps? What's inside the box? What's the difference between the one in the hand and the one in the head? How could you say that there's no Torah Shebal Peh for those who claim, oh, I only accept the written word. The rest the rabbis made up. What do you mean they made it up? You have to have it.
What did it?
You had, yeah. They had an attitude problem, that they felt the rabbis were politicizing the whole thing. Oh, they hung tefillin on the wall, and tzitzis they put, because it says reitem oso. You have to see that. So they hung it, and it says beinei necho, which means literally between your eyes. So they would put it on, at least the Karaites. The Stuki was a separate group. They had a problem with the afterlife. Other issues. They were similar groups in that they contested what the rabbi said, but the Karaites were more of a problem with the Torah Shebal Peh. or they're putting on the tefillin or hanging it on the wall. So they didn't want to accept. The tzdukim too had similar issues, but different types of issues. Anyway, so with a yoledet, the Torah is mechadesh, a very unique din of tuma and tahara. And one of the chidushim is that a woman who gives birth, even if she sees no blood, she's tmeya. Now, I say even, she doesn't, unless she has a C-section, she's most likely going to see blood. But this halacha makes a difference, because there's a machlokes in the Gemara on is it possible for the womb to open up without any blood whatsoever. Because in the end, we are concerned if there was blood or not. Blood is ultimately what usually makes the woman unclean. So what's the chiddush over here? That she could be unclean even without blood, because even if you hold, like the Man de Omar in the Gemara, who holds she'em ptichas kever lelo dam, it's not possible for the womb to become open without there being any blood. Here, it's still possible that she would be tmei if there was no blood. If you talk about women that don't have blood, there was such a hechet timtza. Those that don't have dam niddah. In other words, even those that don't have blood, in other words, we know for sure there's no blood, still there would be something called tumas leida, the tumah of giving birth. So midin leida, she would be tmeya. The way the Torah explains is that there would be a difference in how many days she's unclean, whether it's 7 or 14, depending on if it's a boy or a girl. Yes. So what does it mean, 7 or 14? It means that even if she stopped seeing blood before then, you would still have to wait the 7 or the 14 days. So let's keep in mind that today it's not that relevant, the 7 to 14, because in the end she ends up seeing more than 7 or 14 days. I think the average is about 10 to 21 days, something like that, 2 weeks to 3 weeks of blood. And of course, it's not gushing in day 10 as it was in the first day. It does gradually diminish, but still there's blood. After which, the halacha today says that she would have to wait Shiva Nekiyim. The chiddush here is, however, that she can begin the Shiva Nekiyim even within the 7 and 14 days. So technically, even if she stopped seeing blood after 3 days, she would be able to start her Shiva Nekiyim, as long as she would not be toivel before the 7th day for a zachor, or 14 days for a nekeva. The halacha today is anyway that you need 5 plus 7, as we will eventually see. So she would have to wait at the very least a minimum of 12 days for a boy. And if it's a girl, she would have to wait a little bit more. The 7 clean days don't have to begin after the 7 or 14. They can begin after she stops seeing blood. So that requirement of 7 clean days, because today we require that because we don't distinguish or can't distinguish between dam niddah and dam zit, right? The Torah requires 7 clean for a zava. Since we don't know how to distinguish, so we pretty much apply the 7 clean days across the board whenever there is. But she doesn't have to wait a certain amount of days to begin the 7 clean days. As far as the Leda, the days of the Leda, as soon as she stops seeing blood. So we have the 5, then we have the 7 for a boy, and if it's a girl, then she would have to wait a couple extra days. As long as 14 days have gone by, then she would be able to go to the any dam that would follow after that would be called dam tohar. The word tohar means being pure. So midaraisa, that dam is not unclean. It's clean blood, which means the minat Torah, she would be able to be intimate with her husband, even though she's still seeing that kind of a blood for the next 33 days for a boy, 66 days for a girl. After that is finished, after that time frame is finished, then any blood she sees is called dam niddah. She's going back to her regular vessel. She's going back to the regular blood, which is metameher. This is medin Torah. Yeah.
You said before that when they see
right.
Mm-hmm. Which will slowly be on 7 days.
Right.
For a boy. She becomes tahar.
No, remember, tahara only comes about when she goes to the mikveh, tevila, right? But technically, just like by Niddah, if Niddah saw 7 days of blood and stopped after 7 days, she can go to the mikveh. The Shiva Nekiyim of spotless 7 clean days is only what we do today, from the time of Rab Zera, the takana that they took upon themselves. We don't distinguish between dam ziva. The women cannot exactly always know or calculate what is this. Is it nida? Is this a zava? For zava, Shiva are required. For nida, you don't need midin of the Torah. Today we use the Shiva Nekiyim in every respect, in every halacha that involves the blood. So regardless of when she sees, as long as it's coming from the makor, of course, she would be tmeya for as long as the blood is there, and then Shiva Nekiyim would be required on top of that. We have, and we haven't really gotten to explaining it fully, the additional 5 days before a woman can start Shiva Nekiyim, because of another issue, Poletas Shichva Zera, which we'll talk about in Siman Kuf Tzadik Vov. That we need those days. She makes a hefsek tar before she begins. It just happens to be that in a regular Niddah, she sees anyway 4 or 5 days. So she can't even begin Shiva Nekiyim, even if she wanted to. So same with the Yoledes. So by the time the blood is finished, she's pretty much covered the amount of time she would have to wait for a Zohar and possibly even a Keva. And she would be able to begin the Shiva Nekiyim if the blood stopped. If the blood stopped earlier, she would be able to count the Shiva Nekiyim earlier. So after 14, 15, 16 days to go to the mikveh, she's covered boy or girl. If that's when she ends up going to the mikveh. Alright, so those are the days of Dam Toihar. 33 days for a Zachar, 66 days for a Nekeva, and that's Medin Torah. But because of the Chumrah of Rab Zera, we said that every woman needs, in addition to those days for a Zachar Nekeva, needs the 7 Nekiyim. The Rif, the Ramban, the Rekeach, and the Raivad pretty much hold that this is the halacha today for Yemei Tohar. In other words, that we just wait till those days are over for her to go to the mikveh. In other words, any blood that she sees even during those days, beyond the Leda, are Tmeim, and she needs Shiva Nekiyim during those days, and she goes to the mikveh. If in fact she saw blood, just like he would be Dam Niddah. But it is brought down, the Rosh brings it down, the Rashba, the Ran, and apparently the Rambam too, that they allowed the Dam Tohar. In other words, there was a minhag in certain parts of the world up until, I guess, a few hundred years ago, that Dam Tohar was treated as in the days of the Gemara, early on, that they made a difference between the two. Now, since there was a little bit of a difference between the two, you will see in the poskim, you will see that there was a chumrah. Some mentioned the chumrah of being poirish. You know how a husband is poirish from his wife 1 oina before, when she's expecting the veset, or any of the days that she may be having in, whether it's a veset kavua or sheina kavua. There's a being poirish 1 oina, 1 time, whether night or day before, or a full day, depending on how you hold. So some bring down this chumrah of being poirish the night of the 41st day for Zohar and the night of the 81st for Nekeva. Right? We said 40 total for Zohar, 80 for Nekeva altogether, and it was 7 plus 33, 14 plus 66. So the night before the last day, some would bring down this chumrah of being poirish. And the Rosh explains the reason why they did that was for those who actually had the minhag of allowing the Yemei Tohar. So you would need a heker. In order that you should not confuse themselves with where they're holding, you would need a heker. You know, it was now you're going over, this is transition period, you're going over to the days that if there is any dam, she's a Niddah. So there would be purish, maybe the Veset is coming back. Or because simply they would be confused, they would get mixed up between the different stages. So there was some who were machmir to be purish on that last night. Beis Yosef doesn't bring this in because he doesn't hold like that altogether, that you can have relations during that time if she sees blood. Because imagine if she sees blood and then she sees again. I mean, obviously after the 80th day it's going to be Dam Niddah, so would need to differentiate between. But for most intents and purposes, most poskim today that I know of hold that we treat Yemei Tohar the same as we treat the days of Leda, days of Niddah, that she, where she's unclean. Okay. So even though we said that a woman is Tmeya the additional 7 days, was that she's unclean for an additional 7 days, which have to be Shnekiyim. There are certain leniencies during that time. They're going to get into the leniencies right now, but there's points can talk about what happens if she's a Kesa during those Shiva Nek. This is an extra Chumrah. It's after birth. Do we treat it the same or not? Let's just say that it's a little bit more lenient in certain ways. The question that I did see raised, an interesting question, is why would we be machmir to require here 5 plus 7 and not 4 plus 7 like by Besul as recently learned? That by Besul will need to wait 4 days plus 7, and here you would need a total of at least 5 and then 7 cleans. Even though again in the end it doesn't really make a difference, because by the time the blood is finished, it's beyond that required amount of time. Still, the Poskim explained that here we're talking about Dam min HaMakor. There was room to be more machmir than by Dam Besulim. Still, even so, in some other areas there may be some leniencies. What sometimes people forget, however, is that the complications or the halachas for Yoledes do not really begin the childbirth. They really begin a little before. Because when a woman dilates, when a woman begins to have very, very regular contractions, it could be at that point that her womb is open, large enough for it to be considered that she's already a Niddah. It was a Yoledes, as far as the tumor is concerned. So the harchakas that we'll be talking about in a few more Simanim, actually the next Siman for Kuf Tzadik Hey, the harchakas that apply between husband and wife during the time she's a Niddah may apply when she's already in the hospital bed getting ready to deliver. It all depends on how close she is to childbirth. Depends how dilated she is. It doesn't really have to do so much with the water breaking. You may think, oh, the water broke, that's it. Well, it depends if there's blood in the water. But it's not so much the water breaking, it really depends on how open it is. Now, for women who have given birth several times already, it's already open, as it is. It's more open than for a woman who's giving birth the first time. So that, I'm not talking about that kind of an open. I'm talking about the opening as a result of the pressure on the cervix. It was as the child is coming down, where it dilates and there's contractions. So if there's regular contractions and it's dilated a certain amount, then the husband cannot touch her. Right? She may want him to hold her hand. It all depends at what stage we're at. Most men do not realize it, but it's not correct for them to be facing his wife as the baby is coming out. So he should not be looking at that area of her body. He can be in the room, but no physical contact at that point when the baby is about to come out. Because at the time the baby is almost about to come out, it's dilated enough that we say that there's already dam, even if you don't see the dam. Okay, so maybe we'll read it, this halacha inside. The Chaber says, Yoledet, a woman who gives birth, afilu lo ra'at adam, even though she did not see any blood. Tme'a keniddah, she is tme'a just like a niddah ben yalda chai ben yalda met. She gave birth to a living baby, or is not living. Afilu nefel, even if it's a miscarriage. And later on we will see the various halachas about miscarriage. V'kama hem yemei tumasoy, and how long are the days of her tumah? Achshav bizman hazeh, in our days, kol hayoldos chashuvos yoldos bezov. Any woman giving birth is considered giving birth in zivus, which requires of her tzrichos lispo shiva nekiyim, 7 clean days. It's not like what the Torah just said, all you need is 7 or 14, boy or girl. He's 7 nekiyim. Nimtzas oimer, so what comes out of this is sheyoledet zochar, if she gave birth to a boy, first of all we say mazel tov, and then yosheves zayin leleida. By the way, the reason I say mazel tov because it's a special bracha the husband is supposed to make a toiva meitiv when the boy is born. And when a girl is born, he has to save some money. Yeah. Actually, she saved money for either one of the two. But, sits, in other words, she's unclean for 7 days because of the Leida, the birth, the sign, the Nekim, and she needs a 7 Nekim. Leziva, because we treat her as a... She gave birth to a girl, Yosheves Shavuaim. She's unclean for 7 days. Leida, for the Leida itself, and then Shiva Nekim Leziva, 7 additional days for the Siva. Remember, the seven clean days can start earlier if she stops seeing. As long as she's met the 14 days. Yeah, they can overlap. That's exactly. As long as she stops seeing blood, she can already begin the Shiva Nakim. You have to have the minimum of 7 and 14 to cover the Leda. So we have Shabuayim leLeda v'Shiva leNakim v'Shiva Nakim leZivo Yemei Leda Shem Zayin leZocho. Now the Mechaber explains there's 7 days of Leda which are 7 for Zocho and Yudalet and Nekibo. Im lo ra sobohen. She did not see any blood during those days. Oilim leSfira Zivoso. They count towards the Zivoso. Im Shilmo Shiva Nakim betoch Yudalet and Nekibo. If the 7 Nakim are complete within the 14 days of the Nekeva, Ariza Suro ad Leiltas Vav, she still has to wait till the night of the 15th. If she went to the tefillah, to the mikveh, before then, the tefillah does not count. So she would have to have had the minimum 14. And as we said by Zocher, you would have to have had the 5 plus the 7. So by the time she goes to the mikveh for a Zocher, most likely it will be close to the 14 as it is for a Nekeva. Alright? The Ramah says, "Ula'achar shiva lezocho v'yudale leNekeva muteres leba'alo miyad." After the 7 days of a zocher and 14 of Nekim, muteres leba'alo miyad. Me'achar shesofra shiva Nekim. We're talking about after she's also, at some point, counted the 7 Nekim. She was 7 days completely clean. V'lo chazro v'roso, and she did not go back to seeing. Now he brings down a minhag, a real chumrah that most of Klal Yisrael today does not have. But he brings it down because I guess in some countries they still had this till recently. Yesh mekomot shenoagim shein torbim toch mem lezochor u'shmoinim lenekeva. Yeah, some don't go to the mikveh for the entire 40 days, an entire 40 for zochor, 80 for nekeva. Ve'in lehatir, the Ramah says you should not make it mutter b'mokom shenohagu lehachmir. It's a place that everybody's machmir. If there's a place where there's no real minhag, then you shouldn't be machmer. They asked the Chazon Ish, I believe, whether they should introduce this chumrah. I said no. If somebody did not have it, you don't give him this chumrah. I think the Rambam was very, very against it. This kind of a chumrah, that some had. He says this is not the minhag of the majority of Am Yisrael, and therefore don't introduce this minhag anywhere. So therefore, the Ramah just brings down that you should be machmir if you had that minhag in your family. A woman that did not have a minhag in her family, but they just did it because they thought that was the right thing. She needs a hatorah, for doing it 3 times, like a neder. But after she gets the hatorah, permission, released from the vow, from the custom, you can just go back and not be machmir.
And does she pay for this thing?
That's why she that the husband is insisting. We don't have. No, she has to follow him. She follow. Yeah, a woman always follows the husband. Yeah, but this will be. But it would be a question today if a husband is really coming from a place that they had such a chumrah, or he just thought so. I don't know of anyone that has this chumrah today.
Well,
in general, yeah, the woman always follows. Yeah, he doesn't eat rice on Pesach, and she's Persian. He loves rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So he says, "I'm sorry, we don't have rice, but he has to follow the Ashkenaz minhag."
Yes,
yeah. So any Isurim, she follows him. Yeah, and the other way around, in my home we always ate rice, and she's from Hungary or from Romania, no rice. Well, guess what? She didn't eat rice. Yeah, no, she just follows his minhag. There's no problem with it. Yeah, no, of course not. She's allergic to it. She doesn't have to. Yeah. There was a famous problem with a couple accustomed to make lokshen kugel, to make kartoffel kugel, potato, and 2 different kinds of kugels for Shabbos. So they both went to the Torah. They went to the rabbi. He insisted on having his kind of kugel for Shabbos, and she says, "No, it's going to be my kind of kugel that our custom is for Shabbos." So what did the rabbi say? The rabbi says, "You got to do what's the potato kugel, but I'm going to ask you to make a second kugel every Shabbos, a lokshen kugel. That's going to be called a shalom bayis kugel. So you're going to make both." Yeah, not everybody. It's a lot of it's extra work. So sometimes they alternate. This Shabbos, this kind of Shabbos. Anyway, yeah, she married a Yaka, so she had to deal with his customs. So how long does he wait after eating steak to have milk? Yeah, 3.5. Yeah. Then there's some that hold 5. Yeah, most of us hold it 6. Yeah.
I want to know whether I keep it short.
Well, no, not really. No, that doesn't work. Yeah. All right, so during this time, of a b'moker she'en minhag and achmer, so if there's no minhag, no one should not be machmer, cloud. Like miyad shelo rosa damach hashiva lezachav yudan, the game of the self shiva nekim, but there's the battle. So once the 7 clean days are over, after 7 for zochar and after 14 for nekim, in other words, once everything is done with, she's completely clean, she's muteres the she goes to the mikveh and fine. In other words, there's no waiting more. So we figured that by 2 weeks, give or take a few days, maybe a little bit more, she will be done with and go to the mikveh, and that's it. After that, however, if she saw even a drop of blood, Tameya, after that, it's called Dam Tohar. During the 33 days for Zachar and 66 days for Nekeba, this is clean blood. The minhag is throughout all the Jewish She'im boiling on Dam Tohar, as the Basar brings down. No one has relationships during the time there's Dam Tohar, during this period of time. The status of the Dam is like any other Dam Niddah. So seeing blood afterwards, even though it could be birth related, still it would be Tameya. Actually, I saw something in the Shevet HaLevi. He brings down, I didn't see the whole truth of it, but he says a lot of times when husband and wife have relations after childbirth, and there is dam, whenever there's dam in tashmish, we're concerned that it shouldn't be dam machmas tashmish, right? Which was a whole sugya before that we covered. But this can happen after childbirth. Whenever it does happen, it's because there's been a childbirth. In other words, there's been a birth, and as a result of that, it hasn't healed completely. So I think he goes on into tshuva to explain why it's better and healthier for them to just wait and to hold off a certain amount of time to normal. But, of course, depending on the woman, depending on the situation. All right, let's see one more seif. The other seif are somewhat related to this and have to do with miscarriage. All kinds of things coming out of the womb. Sometimes we can't tell what is that. And why is this important? It's important because we want to know if that something is a boy or a girl. In other words, what is the status of this woman? And if it's before 40 days, make a difference, as we said before, for pidyon. Because anything that happens before 40 days, any exchange before, we treat it pretty much like water. We treat it pretty much like under 40 days. So let's maybe read it inside first. I'm a pellet. A woman who has a miscarriage betoch mem within 40 days. Eno chosheshes levlad. Now, first of all, what are we talking about here? What do you mean betoch mem? Within 40 days. 40 days of what? Well, this was pregnancy. Now, she could have just given birth. Okay? Also, in other words, we have to have a time frame here. We have to know from what point on did she become pregnant. Because sometimes a woman may not know. Technically, she may not know. Wait a minute. Is it possible that she was pregnant before? And even though she had blood after that, I'm going to explain that a little bit later. Technically, it's not necessarily from when we always think she becomes pregnant. When do we ordinarily think she becomes pregnant? After a mikveh. For the obvious reason that is when ovulation occurs, and that is when she can become pregnant. Before that, she was tmeya for a while. So to think that she became pregnant from before is a little bit difficult, as we will soon see. So here the plain halacha reads as follows: Amapeles betoch mem. If we know that it's within 40 days, or when she became pregnant, Eina chosheshes levlad. Within 40 days, she doesn't have to be chosheshes that this is a vlad. But chosheshes mishum niddah afilu lo rosa. The actual miscarriage in itself brings on the concern of niddah. In other words, if she sees blood, even though there was no blood, we said it's ptichas. In other words, it's an opening of the rechem. So she's considered niddah. So choshesh, that's what Mechal means. But chosheshes mishum niddah afilu lo rosa. The Ramah explains, that's the machlikas that is discussed at length in the Gemara. Do we hold ptichas hakever and ptichas hakever, opening of the grave, it's called there, opening of the womb? Can that happen without dam? That's a machlokes. So for the most part, we hold it's almost impossible for the womb to open up and that there should be no blood. So the fact that she had a miscarriage, even though it was day 38, and therefore it's not a vlad, still chosheshes mishum niddah. She still has to be concerned of the dam niddah, even if there's no blood. Nafkamina, says the Ramah, the miyad la'achar shesofra shiva nekim muteres. So what's the nafkamina? If she's unclean or not clean? I mean, what's this halacha being mechadash to us? If we treat her like a niddah, she's just like a niddah. No, the chiddush here is that if this is not a vlad, once she's counted 7 clean days, muteres ve'eno chosheshes leba, means she doesn't have to concern it. Well, was this a boy or was it a girl? Because if it's a girl, then she would have to wait longer. So a miscarriage at a later stage, as the other halachas may be more complicated. Maybe, I say, depending on how long she sees blood. She would have to, if she does not know if it was a boy or a girl, she may have to be machmer. Maybe this is a girl, and she will be choshesh for a vlad too, not just for niddah. Niddah, we said, that's the way we hold. It must have been blood even though you don't see it. But since this is before Mem Yoim, then it's not a problem. So after Shiva Nekim, she would be muteres. So as far as knowing when she became pregnant, why aren't we choishish? Maybe she was pregnant from before and then she saw blood. And it could be that she was pregnant for longer than what we think. Because after all, if she was pregnant, she wouldn't have seen blood. Right? So, if a woman becomes pregnant supposedly, she wouldn't see blood. So, to say that she was pregnant from before doesn't make too much sense. Then why is she seeing blood? In other words, if you want to be choishesh, this is one way of looking at it, that she was pregnant longer, started before, sometime before, and then somehow she saw blood, then she went to the mikveh, and you don't want to count from the mikveh, but you want to count from before, and this could make a difference, whether there's a bechor later on or not. We don't say that because if she would have been really pregnant, she wouldn't have seen blood. That's how some boys can want to learn. But this is a little bit of a problem. Pischei Teshuva brings down several poskim that don't agree with this kind of thinking. That usually we hold that a meuberes, a woman who's pregnant, eina mesulekes domim. She doesn't stop seeing blood until sheyukar ubra, until you can actually recognize the fetus. It may be possible for her to see blood beforehand. So therefore they explain that the only possibility of knowing when she became pregnant is from the time of the tevilah. Only after she was turbulent and then she became pregnant do we have any time frame. Do we know more or less when to calculate it from? Sag in the Shevet HaLevi that he writes that today many women don't even see within the first 3 months. It was once there's conception, pretty much a short time after that, a woman stops seeing blood. So l'chora, according to that, if that's the fact, you would be able to count from the last tevilah. You would be able to assume that that's when she became pregnant. And you can be soymech on that, you can rely on that for pidyon haben. That if anything happened, if the miscarriage was within 40 days, it would be choishesh for vlad. And therefore, the baby, if it's a boy that's born after that, would be a bechor. Okay, but the dina, lemaisa, the Shuchan Aruch holds like the man the Omer, the EF shel ptichas hakebe beloy dam, so therefore she would be at least a tmei niddah within the 40 days. Because as we said before, it's a machlokes. How do you hold? Now this machlokes is an important machlokes in another very important area. Women who are pregnant, and even if they're not pregnant, they sometimes are examined by doctors with all kinds of tools. And some tools penetrate all the way to the womb, and they can become a problem if there's blood. And if there's no blood, if we know for a fact that it went all the way. So the question is as follows. First of all, do we say the klal of ein only when it's a natural opening of the womb, that it naturally physically opens by itself through childbirth? That for sure some blood was there even though you don't see it? Or do you say any time an instrument is stuck inside, if it's wide enough and long enough, it could bring about the same kind of symptom, that it would be a psichas hakever, and since there's no psichas hakever v'lo dam, that she's automatically a niddah if the doctor inserted some instrument. So there are various tests that women go through. One of them is called a pap smear, and from what I know, that test in itself is not a problem, because if the doctor were to put in his fingers, also the fingers are not long enough to cause any problems, too deep. To just insert something a couple of inches is not a problem. It's when you go beyond, when there's a chance that you went all the way makor. That's when it's a big, and depending, of course, on the length of this. So it's a woman who is going to be having any test, she should follow the following. Number one, if possible, she should have any exam done when she's a tmeya anyway, when she's unclean anyway. That's the best time to do it. And she should ask the doctor what kind of an instrument he's using, what's the size of that instrument, because that can help the rabbi determine how far he went. And she should ask him if perhaps a mistake. He did scrape her somewhere and some blood came out, if that blood is because of the scrape, or where is that blood from? The question, however, goes back to nemanos. Can we trust a doctor who's a goy? There's a little bit of a problem with that. So that's why I'm saying it would be best for her to get this done when she's tmei. She's unclean, there's less problems, there's less, or go to a Jewish gynecologist, yeah. So this is in itself a machlokes whether that tichas akever can happen externally through something going in, or do we say that klal, in other words, because we're machmir like that klal, only when the body naturally opens up, as in birth. So even though she did not see any blood, but it opened up, whether it was for miscarriage or regular birth, we still say she's tmeya. Or do we also apply this rule, this halacha, when the opening is happening externally, there was something being stuck inside, even though it's not going far enough, it's opening it up, however, it's wide, it's a question in halacha. So that's why it's always best to do is tmeya, then you don't run into these problems. Okay, this is pretty much it for the mapeles. The most important part of mapeles is to figure out, first of all, when did it happen? Did it happen within the 40 days or not? And later on, we have to see exactly what is it that's coming out to determine whether there's a tuma of nekeva or not. There's some very interesting halachas later on. What happens if they're twins? What happens if it's C-section? Well, C-section, there is no blood. C-section is not a regular birth. How do you treat it then? What happens with the placenta, just the placenta coming out? Could it be that there's just a placenta, there's nothing left, nothing inside? These are the kinds of halachas that I don't think for the most part we need to deal with today, but we'll go through them with Hashem next. Okay.